this tutorial, you will learn how to securely save your game data in Unity using binary formatter instead of player prefs, including how to save, load, and even delete high score step by step. Huge thanks to Man Chunli for supporting me on Patreon and unlocking exclusive benefits. Your support truly means a lot. If you would like to access to source code and more, check out my Patreon and Udemy links in the description. Now let's dive right into it. In order to save our score, we will use binary formatter. So previously we used player prefs in order to save our data, which is not a good way. So we're gonna use binary formatter in order to do that. So we're gonna go over to our project tab, assets, right click, create, go over to scripting, then click on this empty C# script and name it to something like player score or just like that. And you can see I have it inside my data script folder, which is player score. So I'm gonna open that up by double clicking on it, and this script right over here, it will be responsible for what type of data we want to save. So we're gonna save our high score. So what we will do, we're gonna use constructor in order to do that. To create a constructor, we need to type this public, but before we do, let's create the variable. So basically the score that we want to save. So we're gonna make a public float, and let's call it something like save score. Let's call it save score, or let's call it high score. I'm gonna call it something like score, just like that. And now we're gonna create a constructor. To create a constructor, we need to type this public, and we have to type as the name of our script, which is player score, and make first bracket and some curly brackets. Let me explain what is a constructor. What is a constructor? Constructor basically a special type of method, which is which get initialized when we're gonna create object out of this script. Let's suppose you just buying a new phone. So once you're gonna turn on the phone, you're gonna get some default wallpaper, some default settings, and other stuff. So that is the same thing with the constructor. It's initialized when we're gonna create a object out of this class. And this constructor right over here, it's gonna take what we really want to save. So we're gonna save our score, and that will be float type. So we're gonna type float, and let's call it something like save score, just like that. And now we have to set, we need to put it inside this score. So we will set our score equal to our save score, just like that. And we just done this thing. And whenever we created a custom class, basically we don't inherit from mono behavior, make sure you just go to top of your class and make this square brackets and type system dot serializable. So it's gonna make serializable. We gonna able to see this score underneath our inspector. So make sure you just do that. Let's create another script in order to save our score. So we're gonna right click, create, go over to scripting, then mono behavior script, and name it to something like save system. And you can see I have the save system script, and this script will be responsible for saving our score and loading the score. So we're gonna open that up by double clicking on it. And first thing what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and we will remove the start and the update function. We don't need. Also we can remove this mono behavior and this colon, because we're not gonna derive from any basically we're not gonna attach this script to any game object in our hierarchy. But we're gonna type over here static class save system. It means that we don't want to have multiple instances of this class, and we can directly access any variable or any function by typing the name of the script, which is save system. So that's why we just type static. That's why we type static. So we don't want to create multiple instances of this class, and we can just directly access anything. So that's why we just type static. And the first thing, we need a path where we want to save. So we're gonna create a string parameter for it, and it doesn't need to be public. So we're gonna make a private, but make sure you type this as static, because this is a static class. So whenever you're gonna create a parameter or a function, make sure you just type static, and we can call it something like save data. So private static, sorry, not save data. Basically this is the this will be the path where we want to save, and this will be string type, and we can call it something like path, and we can set the path equal to application dot persistent data path. Let me explain what it basically does. Let's suppose you want to save your high score or a score in Android. So the path will be different when you're gonna save your score in iOS system or in iPhone. So the path just gonna be different. So this application dot persistent data path, it allow us any OS version that, sorry, OS system that we're using, it's gonna save correctly. If you want to save in Mac, Windows, so the path will be different. So this application dot persistent data path, it's basically no matter what OS you using, operating system, it's gonna save. And top of that, we can just add make this slash, and make sure you type this quotation, and you can just name whatever you want to do, what you want to name it. So I'm gonna call it something like score, player score, and I'm gonna call it, and make sure you type this dot, and I'm gonna call it something like score, and let's close that up with semicolon. Now we're gonna make a function in order to save our score. So let's make a function for it. So we're gonna make a public static void, and let's call it something like save score. So let's call it save score, first bracket and some curly brackets. And this function over here, it's gonna take this it's gonna take an argument, basically the score that we want to save, and that will be float type, and we can call it something like current score. So let's call it current score, because it's gonna take the current score, and we need to check if this player makes already if this player already have a score something like 10, and currently we just make the score something like 20. So you can see that 20 will be greater than the previous score, which was 10. So we need to set our current score as a new high score, because the current score is greater than the previous high score. So that's why this it's gonna take the current score parameter. So we can just take. And now what we're gonna do, we need to use a file formatter. But before file, sorry, not file formatter, we need to use the file stream and binary formatter. But before we save our score, we just want to check if there is already some data, or we have some high score. So we need to check, and in order to check, let's use this if condition, and we will check right over here if our file, and we're not able to get that, because we need to include a namespace called using system.io. So go to top of your class and include this namespace called using system.io, and it's gonna allow us in order to access the file, and then whatever we want to write inside the file. So we're gonna use this file dot exist, and now we need to put the path right over here. So let's put our path. So if there is already a saved score inside this path and it exists, it means we have the old score. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna compare before we save. But before we do, we need to get that we need to get that old score or the previous high score. To get that, we need to create the file stream. So first thing, we're gonna use the binary formatter. So we will come at the top of our class, and one more namespace we have to include. It's called using. So you need to type this using system. So we need to type system dot runtime dot serialization dot formatters dot binary. It's pretty heavy texting, but we have to use that. And now we're gonna use the binary formatter in order to save in order to get the old score, and in order to save the new high score. So we're gonna use this binary formatter. Let's call it something like formatter, and let's set equal to a new binary formatter just like that. And you can think of this is the machine which just gonna converts our C# object into 0 and 1s, and then it's gonna we will be ready to save it. So it's gonna save in binary, so that's why it's called binary formatter. And now we need to create the file stream. A file stream, you can think of a straw which just gonna take a path and the data that we want to save. So we're gonna create a file stream, and let's call it something like load stream, and we're gonna set equal to a new file stream, and this file stream, and this over here as a first parameter it's gonna take the path. So we will pass our path, and the second argument it's gonna take the file mode. So since we already have the previous high score, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna open that one. So we will use this file mode dot open. We're not gonna create a new one because we already have that. Now we need to deserialize our data, so we're gonna use this formatter. So let's use this formatter dot deserialize, and it's gonna take the stream. So let's pass our load stream, and we're gonna close that up with semicolon. And now we're gonna store the old data or old score inside our constructor that we created inside our player script. You can see the constructor over here, so let's put it inside that. So we're gonna take our data, basically the old score you can think of, and we're gonna put it inside the constructor. Basically we will say player score, and let's call it something like old score or something just like that. We can call it, I'm gonna call it something like old data, just like that, old data, and let's set equal to this. And we have to catch this as player score because we're putting inside player score variable or the constructor variable, you can see. So we're gonna catch this into a as player score, just like that, player score, and that's all we have to do. And now we need to check the current score and the old score. If the current score is greater than the old score that we have, that means we need to say let's suppose the old score is greater than the current score, then we don't have to set our current score as a new high score. So before we save our score, we just want to check. So let's use the if condition, and over here we will check that if our current score, and we will go to old data, we will check if it's lesser than or equal to, and we will go to old data, and now we're gonna access the score. If that is the case, it means our current score is lesser than or equal to as compared to our old score. Means our current score is not as shouldn't save as a new high score because it's lesser than. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna type return. So we're gonna type this return, because we after return we do know whatever we're gonna do, it's not gonna execute at all. But we need to make sure once we load it inside our player score, basically all data over here, we need to make sure we just close the stream. So we will go to load stream, and we're gonna close it. Basically we are finished, you can think of, we are finished as getting the old data. So we type this load stream dot close. Let's suppose there isn't a file or the data is exist in our system, that means we need to save it. So what we're gonna do for this, we're gonna make a binary formatter. So let's create binary formatter, and we're gonna call it something like formatter, or I guess we can just reuse that. So basically we're gonna take this binary formatter, and we're gonna do it over here. It's basically up to you, you can just move it anywhere you want. Make sure you just move it inside this if, or top of this is a if condition over here, because we're gonna use that, so we don't have to create a new one. And now we can just use that. So we're gonna use so what we have to do, first thing we need to create the file stream. So let's create file stream, and let's call it something like save stream. I'm gonna call it save stream, and let's set equal to a new file stream, file stream and it's gonna take as a first argument the path. So let's pass our path. And the second thing we have to basically access. So since we want to save, so we can just create a new one. So we're gonna use this file mode dot create, because there isn't exist any score or the save file. So we're going to create a new one, file mode dot create. Now we need to initialize the constructor. So what we will do, we will say player score. Let's call it basically player score, and we can call it something like new data. Let's call it new data, and we're gonna set equal to a new player score. And this a new player score, it's gonna take the save score. So I'm gonna pass my current score as an argument, that we put it inside this save data function, which is our current score, just like that. And let's close that up with semicolon. And now we have to save it, and in order to save it, we're gonna use the formatter dot serialize. So we need to use this formatter dot serialize, and now it's gonna take as a first argument the stream. So let's pass our save stream, and the second thing, it's gonna take the data that we want to save. So I'm gonna pass my new data, basically the constructor there, and inside this constructor we do know we have the score that we really want to save. And once we save, we need to make sure we always close the stream. So once we finish our saving our score, so we can just close it. Or you can think of like the bridge. Once it's done, we can just close the bridge. So we can just go to save stream, and we're gonna close it. So let's close. Now we're gonna make a function in order to load the score, because we save it and now we have to load that. Means we basically need to show up in the UI just like that. So we're gonna make a function for it. So let's make a public static, and this will be float type instead of typing void. Why we type this float? Because we want to return the data, or the basically the score, because we need to show in the UI. So instead of typing, we just type float, because we need to show and we need to return the score. And we can call it something like load data. Let's make first bracket and some curly brackets. So the first thing, we're gonna check if there is a already file exist. First thing, we're gonna create a binary formatter, but we can skip it. Let's use the binary formatter. So let's create a binary formatter, and we're gonna call it binary formatter, and let's set equal to a new binary formatter. And now what we will do, we're gonna check. So let's use the if condition, if already there exists a path and the save score. So we're gonna use this file dot exist, and we're gonna put our path if it exists. And now we basically need to load that. So the first thing, what we're gonna do, we're gonna create the load stream. Basically we need to create the file stream. So let's create a file stream, and we can call it something like load stream. So let's call it load stream, and we're gonna set equal to a new file stream. And as a first parameter, it's gonna take the path. So let's put our path. So since we just want to load the data, so basically we need to open that one. So we're gonna use this file mode dot open, just like that. And now we're gonna use the formatter dot deserialize. So let's use this formatter dot deserialize in order to get the data, or basically the score. And now it's gonna take the stream. So let's put our load stream, and we're gonna close that up with semicolon. And what we're gonna do now, we're gonna put it inside our constructor, basically the data. So we're gonna put it inside our constructor that we created inside our player score. So let's put it there, basically the load data, or the old data. So I'm going to create a player score constructor, basically the constructor, and we can call it data, or old score. I'm going to call it something like old data. So let's call it old data, and let's set equal to this. And we do know that we have to cache this data as a player score constructor. So we're going to call it as player score, just like that. Now we have to return the score. So what we will do, we will type return, and we will return the score. So we will go to our old data, and then we're gonna access the score, and let's return it. So what we're simply doing, we're just going over to this player score script. You can think of old data, basically this constructor, and then we accessing this score, basically this one, as you can see, and we just type over here old data dot score, basically means that is score. We're just going over to this player script constructor and then accessing this score, and we just returning. And let's suppose there is not any old data or old data previously. So in this situation we're gonna return 0 because we're not gonna have any score at all. So else what we're gonna do, we're gonna return 0. So let's return. So we're gonna type this return 0 just like that, and we're gonna close that up with semicolon. And now we just done all of the things that we need to do. And one thing we always forget to do, that is that we need to close the stream, because once we done loading our data or the world score, we need to make sure we just finish that. So after before we return, what we're gonna do, we're gonna close the stream. So we're gonna type load stream dot close, sorry, load stream, and let's use this close, and that's it. And now we can just save our script, and let's get back to Unity editor. Now I'm gonna open up where player is dying, because once our player died, I just want to save the score, and right after it I just want to load the score. So I'm gonna select my player, let's select that, and I'm gonna open up the player script. And over here you can see my player is dying, and over here as well. So I can call the system.save score function here in order to save it. So we will go to save system script, save system, save system, sorry, save system dot save score. And now it's going to take the current score, basically the score that we want to save. And if I go over to my score manager script, you can see I have a score parameter right over here, and I'm just increasing the score over again and again once the game is running, as you can see. So I need a reference to this score manager script so I can access this score, and as a current score I can just put this score, which is I'm just increasing over time. So I'm gonna go over to my player script, and I already have the reference. And if I scroll to the top of my class, you can see I have the score manager script, and also I have a reference to my high score text. So if I go over to my Unity editor, then canvas, game over UI, background, you can see the high score text, I have the reference. Underneath my player script, you can see right over here in the inspector, so I have reference to both of them. So now what I can simply do, I can just put the score manager script, basically I can just put the score right over here, basically the current score. So I will go to my manager dot score, basically I am just going over to my, sorry, I'm just going over to my score manager script, and then just putting this score there, as you can see score. And after saving that, what I want to do, I also want to just load the score, basically I need to make sure that I want to show inside over here once the this game over UI just gonna trigger. So I can just show it right over here. So we need to update in the UI the high score. So what I'm gonna do, for that, firstly we need to load that score, and to load that we're gonna use the load. So we will go to save system script, and now we're gonna use this load data or load score, and let's close that up with semicolon. And it's gonna return us into a float number we do know. So if I go over to my save system script, you can see this is a float. So it's gonna return in a float parameter. So what we can simply do, we can just take that float and we can just store it. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna store it into a float variable. Let's call it something like score, and we're gonna set equal to this. And now we need to update in the UI. So what we will do, we will go to high score text, and then I'm gonna access the text component, and I'm gonna set equal to score. And we can see we're gonna get a problem that this is a float number, but this is a string, so we need to convert this float into a string. So we're going to convert for that we're going to use dot to string, and inside brackets, inside quotation, I'm going to put 0. Basically it's going to ignore decimal places. Like let's suppose we make the score something like 10.5, so it's going to remove the 0.5. So that's why we type inside quotation 0. And I can just copy this line of code and I'm gonna paste it over here because the player is dying over here as well. So the first thing I need to save, and after that we just loading the data as you can see, and then we storing the data, basically the old score inside this inside this float score parameter. Then we updating in the UI making score. You can see if I die just right away, we should see that score, and we just made 33 the score. And I'm gonna retry my game, and if we make something like 34 or bigger than this number, then that number should be saved as a new high score, because that number will be greater than sorry that number will be greater than with our old score as compared to old score. So let's click on this retry. I'm gonna retry my game, and I'm gonna make the score something a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna jump here, and you can see we just already made over 50. And let me die, let this player die, and we can see now this 74 becomes as a new high score, because the 74 is greater than 33. Basically the it's greater than with the as compared to old score. And let's suppose you just want to delete or you want to erase the score that you made, so you can make a function inside your save system, and you can call it something like public static void delete. And in order to delete, you can use file dot delete, and then it's gonna take. So I'm just gonna show it over here how you can do. So you can use this file dot delete. Sorry, it's gonna take saves. So it's gonna take file dot delete, and now it's gonna take the path, so we can just put the path, and that's all we have to do, and we can just delete.